All right, so it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, who actually reached out to me more than a year ago and said, "Hey, I'd like to come in December and talk to your club about my Santa Claus experiences." And I said, "Well, we're booking programs out into March, so how about next December?" So he literally has been on our calendar for about 14 months now. So Doug Emde is in his 28th season with a really close relationship with Santa Claus, and I'm excited to have him here today. Doug, come on up.
Hopefully this thing's on. Thank you for having me here today. A lot of people asked if I was going to appear as Santa Claus, and I can't appear as Santa Claus and talk about Santa Claus at the same time because I have to stay in character if I appear as Santa Claus. But when I mention Santa Claus, everyone in this room has a vision in their head. Everyone sees a Santa Claus. Now, what's your Santa Claus? Is it the guy from A Christmas Story, the one who, when he's asked about a BB gun, you'll shoot your eye out, kid? Is it Tim Allen? He never wanted to be a Santa Claus, but he turned out to be a great one. Ed Asner from Elf. He's a good Santa Claus, but he's a crotchety old guy a lot of times. Kurt Russell. All of us Santa Clauses think we look like Kurt Russell when we're in full costume. At least we wish we looked like him. Maybe you just think about Rudolph. Maybe you think about the animated Santa Claus. Well, when I think of Santa Claus, there's only one person that comes to my mind, and that's Edmund Gwynn, the man who portrayed Santa Claus in Miracle on 34th Street. He's the only person to ever win an Academy Award for portraying Santa Claus. And a little tidbit about Edmund Gwynn. He died in 1959, and he was cremated, and no one claimed his ashes. So here you have a man who's such a beloved character throughout our country and throughout the history of Christmas, and yet no one cared enough to claim his ashes from the crematory. He was discovered once again in 2023. His ashes were found in an urn in a brown paper bag on the bottom shelf of a storage bin. And so some Hollywood supporters got together and reinterred him in the Hollywood Forever Mausoleum, December 3rd of 2023. So all fame is fleeting, I guess, is one way to say it, in that, he is beloved to everyone, but not cherished by everyone. Santa Claus, where does he come from? It's based on St. Nicholas of Myra, an area in Turkey. He was a bishop, and he lived from March 270 to December 343. The story that's most often associated with him is that of a parish member that did not have money for a dowry for his 3 daughters. And so Nicholas would go by and throw a bag of gold coins in his window for each daughter to have a dowry so they wouldn't have to be sold into slavery. That's the story that's most remembered about him. One thing a lot of people don't realize is he was at the Council of Nicaea in 325, and he was removed from the Council of Nicaea in 325 because he adamantly argued with another bishop about Jesus the Son being equal to God the Father. And so he was so agitated that the other bishop was saying they can't be equal, that they had him removed from the council at that point. We move forward a little bit. So December 6th, 343, that is his sainthood day. Martin Luther comes into the scene in the 1500s. Martin, of course, was a Catholic priest before he founded the Lutheran Church. And in Luther's time, it was common to give the gifts on St. Nicholas Day. And so what Luther did was to try to move away from the Catholic veneration of saints. He said that the gift giving should be laid on Christmas Eve. And so he told his children that the Christ child brought their gifts on Christmas Eve. He started this tradition, and by the end of the 16th century, most of the Lutherans in Nuremberg were celebrating Christmas, celebrating St. Nicholas on Christmas Eve. Sinterklaas is the Dutch embodiment of Santa Claus. He rides a flying white horse, and notice he's not fat. Santa Claus isn't fat at that point. Santa Claus is tied to Stillwater. So how's that? Well, in 1809, Washington Irving wrote the book, The Knickerbocker's History of New York. And this is where we get our first real description of Santa Claus that kind of matches what we see today. He wrote about it that he saw in a dream St. Nicholas flying over the treetops in a wagon. He sat by the fire, smoking his pipe, and then laying his finger beside his nose, he jumped back into his wagon, flew back over the trees. And of course, he's tied to Stillwater because Washington Irving wrote a book, the 1832 Tour of the Prairies, where he rode through with a group of soldiers. He rode through our area, rode through basically south of Stillwater, through Payne County. And if you haven't read that book, it's a great little read. It's a small book, but it gives a complete description of Payne County pre-Civil War days, and it's completely different than what it is now. As far as no red cedars, he talks about the Cimarron River, the trees, the wild horses that are around, things like that. So it's really a great read. In 1863, Thomas Nast drew this depiction of Santa Claus. Thomas Nast is the famous artist who drew all the Boss Tweed cartoons throughout history. And so he gives us the fat Santa Claus here. September 21. Well, you think we start Christmas early these days. In 1897, the New York Sun posted the most reprinted editorial in history, and that is the Yes, Virginia, There is a Santa Claus editorial. And if you ever wonder about Santa Claus or the Christmas spirit, just take a few minutes and read that editorial, and it'll get to you every time. Charles Howard was born in 1903. At the age of 7, he was given a coping saw by his aunt. He would use that coping saw to make little wagons and little furniture and give them to kids in his neighborhood. He began to sell them later in the area, and his mom sewed him a Santa costume that he could go out in. So here's a child in a Santa costume, and she gave him a mask. He found that the mask scared the children. So he quit wearing the mask. And yeah, those are kind of scary. He's the first department store Santa. He convinced a furniture store to allow him to set up a display in their front window in Albion, New York, where he would set up a Santa's workshop. And in that little display window, he would make toys. And he would, sell the toys from there. He started a Santa school in 1937, which still exists to this day. It's called the Harvard of Santa Schools. And so he was a big influence on Santa Claus. He kind of set some ground rules for Santa Claus. And he was also the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade Santa Claus from 1948 through 1965. And he passed away in 1966. So as long as I can be the Santa Claus in Stillwater, I'm going to keep going because I don't want to pass away. Commercialism hits in 1920. Coca-Cola starts using Santa Claus in their advertisement. The thing that's important here is if you look at the Santa Claus suit that he's wearing, it has buttons on the front. So Thomas Howard had the fur on the front. So to this day, when you call a Santa Claus store to buy a costume, they're going to ask you, do you want the Coca-Cola Santa suit or do you want the traditional suit? Those are our two basic suits. So your Coca-Cola suit, if you see a Santa Claus who has buttons, you can go up and say, hey, I like your Coca-Cola suit. You'll know that. Trivia question. Most of you have seen the movie Elf. What suit does Ed Asner wear as Santa Claus in Elf? Does he wear the Coca-Cola suit or does he wear the traditional suit? How many think traditional? How many think Coca-Cola? You're all right. He wears both. At the start of the movie, when he's in the orphanage, he's wearing a traditional suit. Toward the end of the movie in Central Park, he's wearing a Coca-Cola suit. So it's interesting that he wears two different suits. I don't know why they did that, but he does wear both suits. Now, like Tim Allen, I never wanted to be Santa Claus. I never wanted to be Santa Claus. If you look through my family pictures, this is the only picture we have of me growing up with a Santa Claus. It's the stuffed doll there. So if you want to know, the person sitting there holding the Santa Claus, my big brother, Gilbert. That's Dr. Emde there. And so we have myself, Gilbert, my brother Steve, and my little brother Matt there in front of our nice aluminum tree. And I think we do have the color wheels somewhere down in there. Now, we believed in Santa Claus. We knew that Santa Claus every year would come to our house on Christmas Eve while we were at church. I don't know how Santa Claus knew what time we were at church, but that's when he would show up at our house, when we're at church. Now, as I got older, I started to realize, well, Dad is taking his own car to church service tonight. And then we'd find out, well, Dad's leaving church early tonight. And so that was my experience growing up. We believed in Santa Claus, but we didn't make a great effort in Stillwater to go find Santa Claus. Going to college, I met my wife. My wife is a true believer. She grew up in Geary, Oklahoma, and they made an effort to go find Santa Claus. And so her attitude towards Santa Claus was a little different than mine. When we got married, she went to work for a daycare center called KinderCare. They needed a Santa Claus one year, and she said, Doug, will you be our Santa Claus? I said, no, I don't want to be Santa Claus. So she found a parent who would be Santa Claus for him. And he sat there, did the pictures and did the visit at the daycare center. A few years later, we opened our own child care center, 1986. She says, Doug, we need Santa for Christmas. You need to be Santa. I said, no, I would be a terrible Santa. I don't want to be Santa. So, no, we'll find a parent who can do it. So we'd have a parent who has 2 daughters at our center. He had a Santa suit, and so he did it. Now, does anyone in this room know who this Santa Claus is? Who is the portrayal artist? This is David Francis. So he had 2 daughters. Once they grew out of our child care age and went to school, we needed a Santa Claus. Peggy comes to me again. This is the 3rd time. She says, Doug, we've got to have Santa Claus. Will you do it? And I said, no, I don't want to be Santa Claus. I don't want to be Santa Claus. So, but I do know a guy who will be Santa Claus for us. So we got this guy. Now, maybe some of you guys know who this is. And who is it? This is Fred Revis. So many of you knew Fred. Fred was Santa Claus for Stillwater for many, many years. And he did a great job for us. Loved having Fred. He was a great Santa Claus. 1995 rolls around. And it's getting to be Christmas. We've gone through Thanksgiving. I've lost weight. I've eaten all the turkey, eaten all the cake, eaten all the pie, and I've lost weight. And about the week before Christmas, I start losing my vision, and I'm having some other physical problems. And so I go to my brother, and I said, hey, Gil, I'm not feeling really good. And he says, well, let's just do a little blood stick on you and see what's going on. So they checked my blood sugar, and it was in the 400 range. I did not know, no one in our family had a history of diabetes. So this is the week before Christmas. They stick me in the hospital. And at Stillwater Medical Center in 1995, the TVs weren't great. And the week before Christmas, there's not a whole lot of people coming in and out of the hospital. My wife's working. The 2 kids are with her. And so one afternoon, I'm sitting there, I'm mad at the world because now I'm a diabetic. I've got a disease I don't want to have. It's going to change my life forever. I can't be around my kids. Am I going to get a chance to get home for Christmas Eve? In walked Santa Claus. He walked into my room. And, it really cheered me up at that time because it made me think. He brought a smile to my face, and it made me realize 2 things at that point. One, Santa Claus can cheer up anybody. He can cheer up not only kids, he cheers up adults. And in reality, he's better for adults. He can cheer up adults more than he can kids. And two, he can be anonymous. To this day, I don't know who that Santa Claus was. He was not a real beard Santa because we didn't really have real beard Santas in 1995. But to this day, I still don't know who it was. And I knew several Santa Clauses in Stillwater. So, can help adults and can be anonymous. 1997 comes along, Fred Revis has a stroke. And so I call Fred in November. He says, Doug, I had a stroke. I can't really be Santa, but I'll send my son Warren to be Santa. So he comes to our daycare centers. Warren doesn't want to be Santa. And he's kind of like, you know, if you've got somebody who doesn't want to be Santa Claus, being your Santa Claus, that's a problem. It's no fun. So the next year rolls around, 1998, I called Fred and I said, hey, Fred, have you recovered enough that you can come be Santa Claus? He says, no, Doug, I can't do it. He says, but I'll tell you what, I've got a suit that I can loan you. And I said, okay, I'll give it a try. Because I remembered I can be anonymous. Nobody's going to know it's me. And so I go out. Tony Wright, I don't know some of you, I know some of you know Tony Wright, Stillwater policeman who portrayed Santa Claus. He had Fred's suit. I go out to Tony's house. He gives me the suit and the wig, and he gives me a 5-minute course on how to be Santa. And so this is the very first picture of me being Santa in 1998. I'm in Fred Revis's borrowed suit with Fred Revis's wig, and I'm sold. I go into my daycare center. We have 168 kids. Santa knows every one of their names. Santa knows which kids are really good and which kids now get their pictures, their mugshots in Payne County nowadays. So, you know, all kids are nice. Some are just a little less nice. But I was hooked. So I called Fred afterwards, said, Fred, I've got to get my own suit. So he advised me, Doug, you need to get a professional suit. He told me, Ruby's of New York, call them, get a suit from them. So I called, got a suit from Ruby's of New York. This is 1999. I bought my suit. He says, Doug, get a yak wig. At that time, there were basically 3 wigs. There was cotton, there was synthetic, and there was yak. Yak was the Cadillac of all the wigs. And you might ask, what is a yak wig? Well, this is a yak. And the yak wig comes from the belly fur of the yak. They cut that off, and then they weave it into lace for you. So I got the yak wig and became Santa Claus. Now, like I said, real beard Santas weren't a thing. They really weren't a thing until probably Duck Dynasty came along and people started growing these beards. They formed a Real Beard Santa Society in 2009. So really the Real Beard Santas came along about 2009. But in 2000, I bought the suit in 1999. By 2000, my wife decided she was tired of being in the daycare business. And so we sold the daycare centers, and one of the parts of the contract was that I would get to be Santa Claus for the daycare centers. And so we continued to do that, and I just had a blast in it. Some of the things I've learned about Santa. Like Disney, there can only be one Santa Claus. So you should not ever see 2 Santa Clauses at the same time. Real Beard Santas have a rule, if they've actually gone to their school, they have a rule that says they're not to wear red this time of year because they never know when they're going to walk into an event where Santa Claus is, and you don't want to confuse the children. So it's just like Disney. You won't see 2 Mickey Mouses in one area at any one time. But there's plenty of Santa Clauses around, just not 2 at the same time. You never promise a child anything. So if they want a puppy or they want a cowboy hat, you never promise them that. But you also never tell them you won't get them something. And that's kind of a debate that's going on in the Santa world right now. Some say, oh, if they ask for a puppy or a horse, you tell them, no, I don't bring live animals. Well, I don't know what the parents are going to do. I don't know what they're going to get. And so Santa Claus basically will say, well, that's a lot of work. You know, we got a lot of magic we can do, but I don't know. You need to talk to your parents and see. But I'm not going to say no, and I'm not going to say yes to a kid. So that's one thing. Always be prepared to give something away. So in my bag, I mean, this thing's heavy right now because I've got candy canes, I've got stuffed animals, I have bells from the Polar Express. I've got a little first aid kit. I've got things to repair my suit with in there. I've got a speaker so I could have some music going when I'm around. So I'm always prepared to do something. So if I'm in Santa and I see a car wreck, I'm probably going to stop and offer a teddy bear or something. It's an interesting profession that I'm in at that time. You need to know a little bit about dentistry. When they're 6 years old, they lose these teeth. When they're 7, they lose these. And so you can guess pretty well, oh, you're 7 years old. And how did you know I'm 7? Well, because you were 6 last year. And I did that at Simmons Bank one time, and I don't know if you were the one or Kevin Fowler said, it was Kevin, I think, said, Doug, do you really remember that child from last year? I said, no. No. I looked at their teeth and I knew how old they were. So when the suit goes on, you are Santa Claus. And so you don't break character no matter what. You're Santa Claus. And you do need to have a little bit of magic. So that's something that I invented, sort of. I didn't invent the compass, but it's a naughty nice meter. And so I can have a child hold that in their hand and I can tell them whether they're going to be naughty or nice. They're always nice. It's just a matter of whether they're very super nice or just nice. Or like maybe Chris Norris might need a little more work. You know. So, a lot of work. Oh. You're sitting closest to me. There we go. So I did it personally and for our daycare centers. And then in about 2014, Philip Goodwin asked me to do it for the Holiday Heroes, which is coming up tomorrow night. That is where they get together. They have a gift-giving thing for all of the foster kids that are in the care of the DHS in Payne County. Usually there'll be 100, 120 children there. So we give them the gifts, we take pictures with them. And in the past, when I first started this, kids would bring me stuff, and they still do to this day. They'll bring you cookies, they'll bring you little toys, they'll always bring you letters. Well, I would take the letters because kids would give me stuff. I've got people moving through. I would take the letters and just put them in my bag. One night after I got home from this, after probably the 3rd year, I opened up the bag and I get a look at the letters, and I open up one letter and it was heart-wrenching. It was a child who said that he knew he was bad and his parents had told him he was bad and his foster parents had told him he's bad. But he's trying, Santa. He said, I'm trying. And so from that day on, if a child hands me something, I stop what I'm doing and I read it. It helps because I can't read their writing. They can tell me what it is they wrote. But if I ever come across an instance like that, I can help at that time. By the time I got home, I don't know which of the 120 kids gave me that note. I have no idea. And so from that day on, if a child brings me something, I will read it right then. Okay. I also did some commercial gigs. And then this gig, this one's tough. This was the Oklahoma National Guard after they returned from Afghanistan. These are the elders of the Guard. These are the old people. I walked in thinking I was doing a family Christmas thing for the children of the guard members, thinking I'm going to walk in and see a bunch of, guys with their kids. There were guys with their kids. There were people with their children. And so there were probably 30 or 40 children there, but there were 150 or 200 soldiers, all in their normal attire, not in their uniforms. And it just shocked me that these are people who were a year ago in Afghanistan giving their lives, and they're kids. They're just kids. So I enjoyed doing it, but it was a shock to me at how young they are. I've influenced 2 people to become Santa Clauses. This is my little brother, Matt. He's a real beard Santa. He's down in Arcadia, and he's going to actually be doing one here at Wilson Chevrolet sometime this year. And then this is Leslie Lewis. He's a real beard Santa. The thing that they don't understand is that as a real beard Santa, you're a Santa Claus 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So if you go on a cruise, you really shouldn't be drinking the unlimited drink package. And the other thing is you can't sneak up on people. One of my favorite things is, now I've been doing it for 28 years, I've now got adults coming to me that were kids. On the left, you see Hannah. I'm saying, I remember when you were just a little girl and you came and saw me. On the right's Catherine Howell. She brought her kids to see Santa Claus. This kid here, he's a troublemaker. He just wanted to be an OSU baseball player. That's all he ever wanted to be. And I went out to the Holiday Heroes one year. It was probably 5 years ago. And the baseball team was there. And they were off in the corner. And so Santa grabbed his pack, goes walking into the middle of the group because they're all huddled around. Ho, 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 Merry Christmas. And he looks, and his eyes got as big as his saucers. And he goes, I know you. I go, yeah, I know you, Carson. I've known you since you were just an infant. And so that's the fun part, is when you get to surprise somebody. And, they just have a blast with it. Hopefully I'll get to see Carson and his kid this year. We'll see. Sometimes you get to see old guys. This one, the man standing behind me, Gary Frisky, did not know that I was a Santa portrayal artist. And so Gary arranged for lunch, and the 3 of them were there. They knew that I was going to be there. Well, Gary didn't know I was Santa Claus. I come in and start walking around talking to kids, and then I just come sit at the table. And he just had a blast over that. This is my wife, and we kind of reenacted the pose from their childhood. The one thing I will say about the Holiday Heroes and the baseball team and everything, and Scott Petty's here, I'll say this. Santa Claus is better than Pistol Pete. Because the Holiday Heroes...
I feel a candidate for him coming on.
The Holiday Heroes, they have Pistol Pete there. And so he's out there, and he's with the kids, and they're all around him and everything. The second Santa walks in the door, it's like Pistol Pete can leave, because they all come running to Santa. So we have a blast with that. It's fun. And, of course, hit escape?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh. Well, we missed the last slide. But tonight's the parade, and so...
Right.
I can't do
Here,
this
I'll
stuff.
play with this. You keep talking.
Okay, here we go. I do have an announcement to make. Elizabeth Beck reminded me that Lions Meadows of Hope still has 18 children that need to be have gifts, have them adopted, I guess would be the way. You don't have to adopt a child, though you could, but they need them to have gifts given for them. So Rachel has...
So she told me that it was a QR code, and I said, I need to walk up to a tree and get an angel and take it with me. So she put some QR codes on the angels. So if you don't know how to do a QR code, I can help you with that, but we'll pass these around, And if you can take one of the they're not leftover, I'm sorry. If you can take one of the remaining 18 foster kids through Lions Meadows of Hope, get their list and take it back to Lions Meadows of Hope, please do so. She did say they can also shop for you. So, and you can find me for this one, Phil. So if you scan that and you see a child that you'd like to meet their wish list, but you're like, man, I can't go get all this stuff, they take money too. It's really neat the way that happens these days. So, thank you for being here.
You bet. Any questions?
Oh, we got a question. BJ behind you.
Oh, yes.
Not really a question. It's just a lot of you that were here 30 years or so ago. Remember, we used to do a luncheon with the kids at Rotary on Thursday, and our Santa back then was Howard Torrance. And if you knew Howard, that's Howard Torrance. Howard Torrance. He was Santa Claus, grumpiest old guy ever. He was Santa Claus, and he was singing the songs, and the kids weren't really singing, and he stopped and said, by God, if you don't start singing, you're not getting any presents for Christmas. And, sing, damn it. And so these kids just went.
I don't think
Doug,
he
have you
went
done
to
that
Santa
before,
school.
Doug?
No, that's not how I.
That's not how you got the kids to sing?
No.
Okay,
no.
great. Good to know.
You were talking about coming up to a wreck and giving a present. Were you driving a sleigh or a car?
I'd be in a
Or-
sleigh at that point.
Okay,
yeah.
sleigh
My
with-
brown sleigh.
So when you're in a costume, it's sleigh.
Actually, what my excuse if I'm caught in Stillwater in my pickup is that's a loaner from the OSU Veterinary Hospital. They're doing a checkup on all of my reindeer to get ready for Christmas. So I'm just in a loaner.
I love it. Who else has a question for Doug?
Okay, Doug, what is the most memorable thing that a child has ever asked you for? Or unusual, or what's your...
I mean, I get a lot of horses. A lot of kids want horses, yeah. So, you know, and you never know if they're going to get a horse. So, you want to give them that opportunity.
Thank you so much. Let's give him a round of applause.